20. And congratulations, I'm your new chair. I'm sure you're thrilled. So I would like to call the meeting to order, please, and invite the clerk to do roll call.
Here. Member Angelo? Here. Member Liberty? Here. Member Riley? Here. Member Miller? Here. Member Weir?
Here.
Member Diamond, Member Myrtle, Member Barash are absent by prearrangement, and then the committee has one open position. Moving on to,
So I would like to invite public comment if there is any items of interest, please. Please state your name when you come up. Thank you.
When someone comes before the Measure B committee requesting funds for a project, I believe the committee should have a two-part process in place before it decides on how to vote on a request. The first part asks for a detailed description of the scope of the project. For a new project, what is its purpose and what are all of the components in the design of the project? Or for an existing structure, what alterations or additions are being requested? What is the purpose for these changes? The second part involves putting the project out to bid. Get a cost for each component of the project. Having the cost of the project components and the resources available to complete the project, the committee can then decide what the financial value is of each project. The committee can then say yay or nay to individual pieces of the project without nixing the entire project or approving it completely. The Measure B committee needs to know what the available resources are for a project, and the committee needs an overall plan for the Measure B monies. Once a plan is in place, it may become clear that a certain project has less or greater urgency. The committee can prioritize how it wants to spend the Measure B money that reflects the plan. Without an overall budget, it is a whoever gets in line first situation. I suggest using the scope of project with its detail and costs as described so the committee decides whether it knows that our money is well spent. Finally, I have read about who will house our mental health facilities. Willits has been harshly impacted by the freeway bypass, losing many businesses and jobs because of it. Is it possible to consider supporting our communities at the same time as we implement Measure B projects? With this in mind, the Measure B committee should do everything possible to make use of the old Howard Hospital. Motivation for the Adventist Health Corporation is about making money. It is not about building community. I would like to encourage this Measure B committee to always include community in its decisions. Community is one draw for many of us living here in Mendocino County, and using the old Howard Hospital is a great step toward that end. Thank you for all of the work you're doing as our representatives for mental health and for our Measure B tax dollars. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other further public comment? At this time, hearing...
Can I respond real quickly, please? I thank you for the comment, and I hope you can take it to the Willits City Council with the exact same words. Thank you very much.
When is that next meeting?
The Willits City Council.
Do you know when the next meeting is?
There's a city councilman in here. You could ask him. Thanks.
Okay.
Shannon.
Thank you. I just have one request regarding the agenda in the future. I want to clarify that number 2, public expression, is specifically for public expression for items that are not on the agenda. I know in the past we've had lots of members of the community speaking to us about items that might have been better suited connected to the item related on the agenda. So if we could just make that super clear so that people are addressing the appropriate item at the appropriate time, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will move on to agenda item number...
Didn't see my hand, I think.
No, I'm focused.
You're focused. I wasn't. I just wanted to find out what position was open on the Measure B committee. I didn't hear which one.
Please state your name,
Oh,
John.
I'm sorry. John Wetzler.
See. So the open position is on the Mental Health Behavioral Health Board. Excuse me, I screwed that up because I always say Mental Health Board. And to my knowledge, they have elected someone to be their representative. However, that representative has not been appointed by the Board of Supervisors as of yet. So the chair is empty this month. I expect it to be filled next month. Moving on to agenda item 3A, if there is no further public comment. Discussion and possible action regarding introduction of chair, that's me, introduce myself, hello. An election of vice chair of the Mental Health Treatment Act Citizens Oversight Committee for calendar years 2020 through 2022. So, using my chair prerogative, I reached out and Jed was willing to take the position. He sent an email. He could not be here today, but he said, if I am nominated for vice chair, I am happy to accept and will look forward to working with you all in the coming years. So unless there is anyone who has an issue with that, I would like to ask for a motion from the floor.
With all due respect, Madam Chair, I think that we should see if there's anybody else who's interested.
That's why I said if anybody has any comment. So I now entertain a motion from the floor.
Alman will make a motion that Jed Diamond, representing the 3rd District, be appointed as or be elected as the vice chair of the Measure B Oversight Committee.
I would like to second that motion.
Exactly correct. Do we have any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carried. Any public expression? Hearing none. Approval of the minutes.
Agenda item number 3B, approval of the minutes, December 18, 2019. Any comments?
I have one question and 2 corrections. The first on item 3D, which is on page 2, in the first paragraph, it explains that the committee received an update. Actually, that should be an update instead of and update. And it ends, and crisis stabilization unit operated by Adventist Health. I did not go back and watch the video, but I don't recall the motion being that specific. I thought it was just to determine the operational costs of those facilities, not necessarily operated by Adventist Health. So I was looking for some clarification there.
Chair, Ms. Getty, if I could comment. I agree with Member Riley. There was a twofold discussion. One about getting a proposal from Adventist,
Right.
which was for inpatient psychiatric, which was separate than asking them for crisis stabilization. And the direction from the board, and I hope that this was clear, was to do operational costs for everything. And then the Adventist was on the side because they were willing to give us a proposal on running the 24-hour inpatient psychiatric. So I
Thank you.
hope
That
that's
was my
clear.
recollection
Yeah.
as well. So could we correct that, do you think, Member Angelo, by just eliminating operated by Adventist Health from the end? Just take those 4 words off?
Chair Muschetti, through the chair, that's fine with me.
Okay.
If the project manager agrees. I think you did the minutes, Isabel?
I did the minutes based on the transcription
Yeah.
and rewatching the video as well. So
Yeah, no,
what's in there.
we'll just make that change that
Thank you.
Member Riley has suggested. Thank you.
Thank you. And then 2 paragraphs below that, right in the middle of the paragraph, it says Adventist Health plans to designate beds for mental health. I'd like to suggest that we change the word plans to proposes. And then on page 5, the very first sentence, Member Weir clarified the Measure B budget was created by Board of Supervisors. The budget, if I recall correctly, the explanation was that it was approved by the Board of Supervisors, but it was actually developed by the CEO's office and the auditor. So I'd like to make that correction as well. Thank you. That's all.
Anyone else? So do I have a motion on the floor? And remember, it must state that as amended.
I move approval as amended.
I'm sorry. The word sheriff is misspelled many times in this. If it could be corrected, it has 1 R, 2 Fs. Thank you.
Okay, I move approval with all of the proposed amendments.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And I abstain because I was not present. Moving on to item 3C, the discussion and possible action regarding the expenditure report of Measure B tax funds. Commissioner Ware.
Thank you. So this is a current report for the Mental Health Treatment Act Special Revenue Fund. Outside the general fund, it's restricted to its use only for Mental Health Treatment Act approved expenses. You can see to date, we have about 19 months of sales tax proceeds. Beginning in April of 2018, and the last one we received is through October 2019. We now have life-to-date revenue of $13,145,458. Drop down to the expenses. We have expenses totaling $523,043 to date, life to date. We also have interest earnings of $113,869. So right now, the current Measure B fund balance is $12,736,284. That's it.
Do I have any committee comment?
I would certainly like to thank Lloyd for doing what was talked about last month and separating the 25 and 75. I know that's extra work on you, but it makes it clear to the public and to the committee what we're talking about. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Liberty. And please make sure your mics are, you push your button and speak into it. I got in trouble.
Yeah, okay. So I actually want to also thank you for your detailed report and splitting them up like that. I think that's really valuable. And then I wanted to make sure, how available is this data to the public? It seems like I have a lot of people asking.
It's
This is all public?
it's posted on our
Excuse me,
website.
could we all speak so that everyone can hear us, please? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I just was asking how available this is to the general public. This is on the website.
If I may, through the chair.
Yes, please.
This is listed on the website, the measure www.mendocinocounty.org/Measure B, agendas and minutes. If you go into the agendas and minutes, all of this information is posted on the agendas, and any minutes that have been approved for the past are also posted on that particular website of the county website.
I think it's good data, and I don't think that most people see it, and because I get a lot of people questioning what's going on with Measure B, and they're not finding this. And actually, frankly, I had a hard time finding it, so I was thinking about actually spending my own money and running an ad to say, this is where you find all this information. We'll see, because I think it's good data for people to see.
Other commission comments?
Chairman Sketty, based on what Mr. Liberty is asking, we certainly could put a link, I believe, from the county initial web page to Measure B if we don't have it already, but we could do it to Measure B budget. I mean, as a county employee, I think it's absolutely accessible, and certainly it's with every agenda packet we have an update, but if it would benefit the public to have a link where someone could just go in and see what the budget is, we should be able to do that. Isabel could work with IT, and we could get that done if the committee chooses.
Well, I'm remiss because I have a hard time finding anything on any website. So if possible, and if it's an easy fix, I don't see a problem with it. And I don't believe we need a motion to do that. Okay, there you go. Any other public comment on, excuse me, sorry, I have a hard time. Any public comment on the budget?
Madam
Seeing,
Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the budget, or the financial report as submitted.
perfect. So I have a tooth? I need a tooth to accept the budget.
I'll second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Perfect. Discussion and possible action, including adoption of the 2020 master meeting calendar to include scheduling details of meetings on the coast and Willits. This motion happened. I was not there, but I did acquiesce to the fact that I support is the correct word, going off premise to do meetings. It was in the motion that it would be Fort Bragg and Willits. I will also admit that I am going to be very selfish, and I have picked 2 dates in which I actually have the day off and I can attend. And since I'm chair, I feel that is my responsibility. So I am looking at, and this is totally up for discussion from everybody, at July 22nd for Fort Bragg and September 23rd for Willits. With that being said, there are costs that will be incurred for the IT sound and system and using that, and rental of buildings should they not be available free of charge. It is minimal, but it will be billed to Measure B. So that being said, I will take any comments from the committee. Please. Ms. Riley.
I'm definitely supportive of holding meetings in Fort Bragg and Willits. I don't have any personal objections to those particular dates, but in light of the fact that our representatives from Fort Bragg and Willits are not here at the meeting today, my recommendation would be to continue the item until next meeting, given that these proposed dates are still quite a ways off.
Thank you. Further discussion? I'm sorry. Carol?
So do you, and I agree with Committee Member Riley regarding if we know that Town Hall in Fort Bragg is available on July 22nd, and also if Mark Myrtle says that's work. So what I suggest is that we approve the dates so the citizens know what dates we're meeting. And since these are far out, several months in advance, that we go ahead and approve the calendar, which I'm willing to make a motion on. And then on the agenda for next month, that we have the Willits and Fort Bragg dates signed, so we will know the cost, we'll know where they're gonna be and if they're available.
Thank you.
That would be my motion, actually.
I would second that.
Okay, hold on 1 second for that motion. Any other further discussion from the committee?
Those dates will work for me.
Okay. And of course, obviously, anytime we do this, I totally agree with Commissioners Riley and Allman. We have to make sure the venues are available. So, Commissioner Allman, would you please repeat your motion, please?
I will, then we'll have public comment.
Yep.
But I'd like to make a motion, we approve the master meeting calendar as submitted, as given to us today and to the public. But for, my motion will say, for the February 2020 agenda, we will have the information on when this committee will meet in Willits and when we'll meet in Fort Bragg, and we can have all the information there. So that's my motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion from the committee? Any public discussion, expression? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 3, discussion and update regarding approval of request from Mental Health Treatment Act Citizens Advisory Committee for Board of Supervisors to direct County Council to conduct legal evaluation, research analysis, and assessment of Adventist Health Partnership legality, including restriction, necessary control, implications, and compliance regarding the possible use of tax dollars to fund operations of a private entity. That was a mouthful. That would be our project manager, Isabel, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Board of Supervisors had motion to, first of all, before you, you have a list of questions that the subcommittee created by this committee put together to present to the Board of Supervisors for County Council to review. The Board of Supervisors, during the January 7, 2020 meeting, motion to move a recommended action to for County Council to review those questions. They also renumber the questions, putting the question number 6 all the way at the top of the list. And County Council was recommended by the Board of Supervisors to respond, review, and review the questions the committee submitted, in addition to questions that were previously submitted by the city of Willits. And at this point, I was going to turn it over to County Council.
Thank you, Charlotte Scott, Deputy County Council. I'm here on behalf of Christian, who will be arriving a little bit late to the meeting. My understanding is we recently received the board direction on this, and that County Council is working on this, the research and the answers to the questions. It's anticipated that we would have a response by the next meeting.
Any comments or questions from the committee? Mr. Liberty.
So I think that the question about our legal ability to give, contract with Adventist Health, I think that's been asked and answered by Kid Elliott some time back. And then the decision was that we at that time chose not to do it because the sense was, you know, they were going to do some rehab on the rooms, and we would be spending Measure B money, county money, that on something that the county wouldn't own. But it wasn't an issue that it was illegal or we were not able to do it. But I think that the conclusion she came to was that, yes, we could do that. Whether or not we want to spend Measure B money on something the county doesn't own, that was what kind of was the showstopper for us. That's my recollection, albeit not always great recollection.
Member Riley.
Yeah, I agree with you, Member Liberty. I think what we were seeking to get from the additional line of questioning was how would we place controls on the expenditure of those funds, given the fact that we're investing in a private company, if you will. What types of covenant restrictions could be placed? What are the implications of doing capital improvements to a facility that is leased, so instead of owned by Adventist Health? So it was kind of drilling down into some of those. How do we protect Measure B's investment? Not so much whether we can or can't, but how do we protect that, provide assurances for this committee and for the public?
Mr. Allman.
Thank you. And I think there's a big difference between Adventist Health in Ukiah, and if Adventist takes over the coast, because the coast is a hospital district, which ultimately means a hospital and all the equipment are owned by the public. And we're a public entity ourselves, and the monies, the tax dollars coming in are public entities. So I think there is a difference, and so today's motion, I believe, is merely an official request, and we're agreeing with the Board of Supervisors that the county council should continue to investigate it, and hopefully in March at our meeting, we'll have a firm answer. Because when County Council Elliott did give us that answer, I believe that was her opinion without a whole lot of research. That's what she said. She hadn't researched it in its entirety. And and I'll just pick a number, if we're going to use the number that was in the paper, around 3 million for the Redwood Coast, or the Coast Hospital, I think that we would need a firm answer on that before we invest that kind of money. So on this one, I think it's just agreeing with the board that let's find out the answers, because we don't know what we don't know. Thank you.
Any other committee comment?
Yeah, I would just ask county council if we could get this one more formally in writing, and so we don't have to try and remember what someone said and whether or not it was actually true.
Absolutely, we'll
Okay.
put that in writing.
Great.
Something else, sure. Okay, hold on. You're right. Public comment.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. I agree.
Could you
with
state your name,
John
please?
McCowan, Board of Supervisors. I do agree with all of the public comments that are made, especially that the opinion be in writing. And I do want to underline that the board also requested that County Council review all of the numerous questions raised in the City of Willett's resolution that was adopted long ago, and that the board once attempted to get County Council to author an opinion on, because I think it's important to know the legalities of what is possible, what is not possible, whose approval is needed. So this time, we once again, at your encouragement initially, are seeking answers to all the questions you raised, plus all of the questions raised by the City of Willits. And I'm confident that County Council will produce a timely opinion in writing, and we will all know where we stand legally. And then, as has been indicated, there's policy questions beyond that. But the starting point should be to know what is legally achievable and how do you do it. I think that's a very important part of the question. I agree with the comments. It's legal to provide funds to other entities, but you want to know, how do we do that in a way that we're assuring that the public interest is protected? So thank you all.
Thank you. Any other further public comment?
Hi, I'm Mika Ferretta, Vice Chair of the BHAB Board. A question that came up with our board was about this structure would be if and how county residents would be prioritized with the Adventist structure. And I didn't know how to answer that, so that did come up from our board.
Okay, that is something to take into consideration. Thank you.
Yes.
And since this is already already in process, we do not need a motion to continue the process. It is in process, and it will be, we hope, answered by February. Am I jumping the gun?
I know that's our intention, and I'll check with Christian and work with Christian on that.
Thank you.
John Wetzler. I just wanted to, I missed some meetings and haven't seen the minutes, and I'm concerned, are we on board with Adventist? And this is a procedure we're going to explore with Adventist taking over the creation of what we've decided we're going to do? No. So this is just, I guess I need an answer then.
To me, this is
Yes.
exploratory.
It is exploratory.
It's all exploratory.
Right, yeah. I've just been reading about Adventist vacating St. Helena. Everybody's aware of that, I guess.
I just found out today.
Yeah, and I just, there's quite a few people losing their jobs there in St. Helena and moving them to, I think it's Napa, I think. I'm not sure about that, but I just wanted to make sure that it is.
It's
something that's
strictly exploratory.
Right, and then concern about investing in leased property, I have a lot of experience in that. I did that for over 45 years on the Mendocino coast, put a ton of money into somebody else's property. It served me well, but I did leave and left all of that there. I had no way to recoup that, so that's my only concern.
Thank you, John. Any other further public comment?
Joe Bradley from the coast. To further what John said, I had seen the information about what was going on in St. Helena. And if we were to enter into any kind of an agreement with Adventist, I would want some kind of guarantees. And if they can't do the guarantees, then I wouldn't enter into it, because they have a track record.
Thank you. Any other further public comment? Seeing none. Agenda item number 3F, update regarding December 10th, 2019 Board of Supervisors meeting regarding direction to perform an operational feasibility study of proposed Measure B funded facilities. Commissioner Angelo, please.
Thank you, Chair Muschetti. This fits right in with what we've been talking about as an update. Last month's report out on this. I am waiting for a proposal from Adventist Hospital based on the information that was just talked about today, and I as well have the articles, I just got them today, about Adventist closing St. Helena. I do plan on making a follow-up call this week, since I am waiting for a proposal as to how, if there's any way to know how this will impact any proposal coming from Adventist for the Coast Hospital. So that's one part of the operational feasibility study. Again, as I reported last month, we did contact Lee Kemper, and he is not available to work with us. So we do have a couple calls out to other subject matter experts in the field to assist with the operational feasibility study. I do want to say that getting the proposal from Adventist will really give us a big piece of the information as far as the operational costs. So that's where we are, and hopefully I'll have more news to report next month.
Any comments from the committee? Public expression, please.
I'm still Sherry Ebyam. I just question whether, I just heard it said that the proposal from Adventist Health will give us information for the feasibility study regarding operational costs. And I just wonder how it works with when we're working with a for-profit entity and on their site with their staff, and how to sort out the that versus constructing something owned by the county, run by the county. And so I just, that was just in response to what I heard, and I just have a lot of trepidation about the conflict of interest.
Thank you. Commissioner Angelo?
Chair Muschetti, I just want to make a follow-up comment on this, that this is Board of Supervisors direction, which I think is actually good direction to find out operationally what it would cost to have a 24-hour inpatient psychiatric facility. I do agree actually with the comments that were just made by a member of the public, and I think that that's something that we can look at with the legal opinion that County Council will be providing to us. Thank you.
Other public opinion?
Susan Wynn Novotny, Director of Manzanita Services. I just, in commenting about the loss of beds at a time where we're already short on psychiatric beds, having experienced weekly clients of ours being in the emergency room, for more than several days, not receiving placement for the more complex cases who have other considerations, health considerations in addition to behavioral health, where they can't find out-of-county placement at this time. I'm very concerned, very grateful that this committee is moving forward in exploring these options. Would also like to recommend that in addition to the Adventist operating costs, that we get a second opinion on operational costs from another provider, of course. Just thought I'd state it. And not to rush the process, but to say that time is of the essence for those who need care in county. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wend. Any other further comment? Moving on, agenda item number 3G, discussion and possible action regarding the update on the status of the architect. Isabel, please.
Thank you. Moving forward, I have begun moving forward with the architectural services team with phase 1 of the agreement for the regional behavioral health training facility and the for the crisis residential treatment facility. The architectural team's services has adjusted their timeline to accommodate for the California Health Facilities Finance Authority grant, CHFFA Grant, meeting their state board requirements for Mendocino County to receive the $500,000 grant. I'm scheduled to meet with the architectural services team in mid-February to begin mapping the pre-design construction of the crisis residential treatment facility and begin with phase 1 of the agreement. That's all I have.
Committee comment?
So we are going to take a look at providing that facility in order to receive the $500,000 grant. Is that the plan?
That's correct. And Janine Miller could also provide more input on that.
Okay.
So part of the CHFFA grant was for us to build a crisis residential treatment. It's a $500,000 grant that the county applied for and was awarded in 2015. And the contract with Nocht and Lewis, the phase 1 approach, is to look at the architectural design. And really, phase 1, we're looking at getting the facility built within a time frame that meets both CHFFA's time frame, and that $500,000 can augment the additional dollars. And Isabel will work on bringing back both to this board and the Board of Supervisors the additional cost and all the steps along the way that we need approval for.
And that also will include possible locations?
The location that we have to have it at by CHFFA's requirement, we will lose the $500,000 if we do not hold it on the Orchard Street property. So they have set down specific requirements that say we had to have the Nocht and Lewis contract in place, both approved by the Board of Supervisors and this board. And the second milestone that they put on us was that it had to be at Orchard Street. That's partly because when we first when we were awarded the grant, there was not a specific location. When we went back to ask for change because we were working with Redwood Community Services, we worked to the county purchased a property at Orchard Street. That was written into the grant requirements. So they know we own that property. The original proposal for that property was a crisis residential treatment. When Redwood was looking at it, it was actually a 3-pronged project in having a crisis residential, crisis stabilization, and their outpatient crisis services all within that one facility. The obligation that CHFFA has put on us is that you originally proposed this property, you proposed to spend the dollars to buy this property. We are now stating that the crisis residential has to be built on this property, or they will take the funds back from us.
Further comment? Comment from the public, please.
John Haschag, Board of Supervisors. I just wanted to highlight that we did approve this going forward with pursuing this CHFFA grant and construction on Orchard Street for the crisis residential treatment facility there. But with the Knockton Lewis presentation the other month, that they were talking about 3 CRTs throughout the county using old houses and refurbishing those and creating those. So I don't think that going forward with the Orchard Street limits us to just that one crisis residential treatment facility. I think that we can still pursue other places around the county. So, thank you.
I have a question for,
Yes, Chairman Allman.
so Supervisor, certainly, the cost of staffing CRTs, has been a part of our conversations at the very beginning, but it impacts supervisors much more than it impacts our committee. And so am I to understand that you would support, moving forward on the Orchard Street property, knowing that the staff would, when we haven't even 100% set up, agreed on the PUF unit yet, but as for the crisis residential or crisis stabilization on Orchard Street, you're in support of that?
Right.
Thank you.
Josephine.
Josephine Silva. I've heard a lot about how you're very concerned about what things will cost and what things will cost where. But I haven't heard timelines talked about, other than what Wynn mentioned is a really important need for things to happen tomorrow. And I know Tom Allman has talked about how long it has taken to get an actual facility at the jail to happen. And so I think that we need to consider what facilities can happen when. And that may be a really important part of the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further comment?
John Wetzler again. Through the chair, I wanted to find out to Lloyd if, Lloyd Weir, if we have discussed tax credits and funding and maximizing our money that we've collected. There are 13 million so far, and applying, leveraging that money with tax credits. Because I think for a crisis residential unit, we would be able to qualify for tax credits. That's what we did with the Willow Terrace, and we went from 1.4 million to 12 million. I think that's correct. Is that close?
Probably close.
Huh?
Probably close.
It's close. I think that's close to what we did. And that's going to be a very important, leveraging our money that we've got. It's just sitting there. And if we do include residential, that's one of the criteria. So that's a question. Thank you.
Hold on, one second.
So, John, I have not looked detailed down into that. I thought the program manager will cover this when we go through the architectural plan and, which properties and which facilities we can possibly offer up for that
Right.
exchange.
Right.
So it's in the works, and we want to look into that.
I know that Ryan LaRue from RCHDC, that's his bailiwick.
Okay.
And he is interested in helping, and he could be an important person for us to look at as far as the construction, because I think the job they did at Willow Terrace is exceptional.
Okay, thank you.
To take that money. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Ross.
I'm a little confused. So in my parlance, the tax credit means something different than it's being used here. So when you say tax credit, I always think of like a credit to be used against income taxes, which obviously the county doesn't pay. So what is in this context, what is a tax credit? You know that one.
There
Thank
you go.
I have a little experience in this area. And I appreciate the public's comment. I have not heard of low-income housing tax credits being used for a medical facility. It's typically used for affordable housing, sometimes historic rehab, things like that. But I think it's certainly worth looking into. I'm not sure that this particular project would be eligible. But it stands for low-income housing tax credits.
But that's when a private investor is putting money in, and that private investor gets tax credits. So this isn't a private investor, so while I appreciate the conversation we're having, because these are tax dollars, I don't think, and the county doesn't pay taxes, I believe the tax credit question is an academic question and not a realistic question with this project. I'm not a tax expert. I'm a COP, not a CPA. So.
And so it is something that we will look into, and that's
Okay.
what we can get.
Come back.
Reintroduce yourself, please.
John Wetzler. The purpose of the Willow Terrace was for seriously mentally ill. That was a medical condition. And as I remember, that was the premise, that the MHSA funds were available for what we got. And it was residential, and it's a way to, instead of paying taxes to the government, it's for public service, is how I remember the definition of it. You do something good for the public.
Thank you. And as committee members, we will all, I know, look into it. I will, because I would like to educate myself. And then the experts will tell us that we educated ourselves wrong. But we should all know what we're kind of sort of talking about before we say one way or the other. So we will look into that. And we sort of, unless we missed something, Commissioner Miller, handled 3H at the same time we handled 3G.
So just a couple other things I want to add. We are going back to the CHFFA board on January 30th in Sacramento. We will be there, bringing them back 2 of the milestones that they had requested from us. One was that the Naughton-Lewis contract was signed and executed, which we have done. And the second was a resolution from our Board of Supervisors stating that the crisis residential treatment facility would be built on Orchard Street property. Naughton-Lewis will be present with us at that meeting to answer any questions that they may have that I may not be able to answer regarding architectural design and stuff like that. We do have a deadline by CHFFA, so when people are talking about a timeline, there is a timeline that has been put out. One of the things we are asking CHFFA for is to extend one of our milestones of our completion date. The CHFFA grant itself ends December 31st, 2021, so we have to have a facility up, running, and open by November 2021. That is the time frame we are putting forward with CHFFA to have it operational by November 2021. They had originally hoped we'd have something by May 2021. Because of the timelines and the change in that we're not looking at a house or renovating a house, we've had to relook at our timeline. So we are hopeful that CHFFA will be happy with the November 2021 date, being that we've met the other milestones.
Nope. Any committee comment? Ms. Riley?
I do have some questions. Thank you for clarifying the deadline. The resolution that was passed by the Board of Supervisors yesterday indicates that the project will be operational by May 31st, 2021. And I know that some of us on this board have experience with public projects. And the likelihood of getting a facility built and operational in a year or even a year and a half seems really, really ambitious. I don't know if Dr. Miller could speculate on the likelihood of this extension. I don't know. I guess I'd like to know if there's an opportunity to extend it beyond November 21st. That still seems really unrealistic to me. So that was one of my questions. I have another question, and that is, so I've been aware of this proposed project on Orchard Avenue for a couple of years now when RCS first brought it to the city of Ukiah, which we appreciated immensely. But at that time, it was a combination crisis residential treatment. It also had crisis stabilization in there. I'm not sure if any part of it classified as a PUF as well, But we liked the combination of those things, and based on what I've learned from this committee, one of our most immediate charges is to provide relief for public safety in our emergency rooms who are dealing with these clients when they should be better suited in a crisis stabilization unit or something else. So I'm a little frustrated that we're in some ways addressing kind of the part of the system that we already have some beds for, albeit not in town, while we're still not addressing that stabilization, that immediate need for those people who are truly in crisis. So my question is there still an opportunity to combine this facility with a CSU or something else, or is it impossible to incorporate that given the timeline?
So first, the May date was the original date, which is in the CHFFA resolution, which is why it's there. We are looking to have it amended to November. I do think it's likely that CHFFA will support us in this. They've been they've wanted to see this project happen in Mendocino County, and so I think being that we met 2 of the milestones they requested, I feel they will support us in making some amendments to the time frame. I have spoke with Nocton Lewis about whether or not we think these are realistic timeframes. We have put some buffers in there to meet the November 2021, so we think it is doable. And in regards to whether or not we're looking at alternative facilities, we're still looking at that. That has not been weighed out one way or the other. That's part of what Nocton Lewis will be doing in their current contract, is looking at what else could go in that facility. We are going to also be asking CHFFA, which could be a yes or a no, to reduce the bed size from 10 beds to a 6 or 8 bed facility, because there has been conversations about having more than one facility within the county, and if you open up at a 10 bed, it could limit that. So that's another milestone requirement that we are going to be going back to and stating, can you extend to November? And we'd like to look at this as an 8 bed facility with capacity for 6 and the ability to expand, so that we have additional bed opportunities throughout the county.
Thank you. And I have an additional follow-up, if I may, through the chair.
Yes.
My additional question is the way the resolution and the CHFFA grant read, it sounds like it is contingent upon RCS operating the facility, and I was wondering if you could provide clarification on that.
So yes, that is an old resolution that got attached. It is not the most current resolution. The current resolution is resolution number 4. That is the resolution from 2018. We have a resolution from December 2019 that's more current, that has the requirements that, 1, we have the Nocton Lewis contract in place, 2, that we have something from the board stating the property will be built on Orchard Street, and it still has the May 2021 opening, constructed and opened by, and we will be changing that. So that's a very old amendment, and none of that is current today.
Thank you. So a couple questions, and there's been things in the media regarding the real estate, the ground, the piece of property on Orchard. My first question would be just to make sure that 100% of what we're talking about would be owned and controlled by the county, and no private entity such as Redwood Quality. And the second is, and I probably am missing this, and I'm thrilled that we're getting to a time frame that you ask about, where we're going to have a new bed space in this county, but the cost of building the building, that's not the $500,000. Where is that cost coming from for the genuine stick build?
So it is my understanding that everything will be owned by the county. So building and land is currently owned. The land is owned by the county, and that the building would be owned by the county. And Carmel can correct me if I'm wrong. And in regards to the additional funds, we would be coming back to Measure B once we know the cost, that what CHFFA would not, whatever the CHFFA dollars will not cover, we would be coming back here to ask for those dollars.
And that estimate would come through Nocton Lewis, the architect?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other committee comment? Public expression, please. And please state your name.
Hi, I'm Emmy Good, and I'm sorry I was a little late, so I may have missed something. But I don't know how many of you have all personally gone over there to Orchard Avenue and looked at the site that I believe we're talking about. Because last meeting in December, several of us went over to the property itself and actually measured the amount of space that was available to put a facility. And there is already there are some mental health services that are proximate to that. But the amount of land that's actually there to build a building and to have a parking lot that would serve that thing, to me, does not look like it would be an adequate space. So even though they're willing to, put out this money and so on, I'm just wondering if this is really where you want to locate it. Just a question.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other, oh. Sorry. No worries.
Joe Bradley. I have a question, and I don't know if in the past this has been looked at. I know we had talked about one time the old Howard Hospital. Have we looked at having all the facilities in one central hospital? The first time my son got hospitalized, there was a hospital at the time in Walnut Creek, and it had all the units there, including conference rooms and a wing for beds when people were working their way out. And it just ran like a clock. And, we're talking about putting different things all over. And with our shortness on ambulances, are we going to have our own ambulance for this too? Because we're going to be bouncing people all over the place as they go from 1 to 2 to 3. And so I know we don't want to lose the money and have to pay it back, but are we looking at this realistically for going down the road? That's just the thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Muschetti, I would like to answer this because I think that there's, there are so many different moving parts with Measure B right now, and there is a lot of activity. And so the original RFP for the architect is to look at the 24-hour PUF, crisis residential, and crisis stabilization, and to look at Orchard Street and the old Howard Hospital in Willits, and possibly a third site if the county chooses to ask the architect to look for a third site. So we talked about 3 different treatment modalities, and we talked about possibly 1 building, 2 buildings, 3 buildings, whatever. So how I like to answer this is that all options are on the table right now. There is nothing off the table. The complication, I believe, is the CHFFA grant and the fact that we absolutely don't want to lose $500,000 for mental health services in this county. So that does limit us to Orchard Street for a residential service, but as Supervisor Hasjack spoke to earlier, that doesn't limit us to just a residential center just on Orchard Street. And then when you talk about the operational costs, I think that pulls it all together. The latest direction from the Board of Supervisors looking at the operational costs of all 3 modalities. So all the questions that come up are much appreciated by members of the public, and I think that over the course of the last 2.5 years, we have discussed this, and at this point in time, we're actually taking action on all of it as far as operational costs, locations, more than 1 building, 3 buildings, whatever. It's still all on the table, and that's the Willits site is still on the table, and the Orchard Street property. So even though we're moving forward with residential on Orchard Street, I don't think it precludes the possibility of having a one-stop shop. Though right now, again, everything is on the table. So thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, hold on. Were you first? Sorry, I was looking over here.
That's okay, thank you. And then additional clarification regarding public comment. The original proposal for Orchard Street from RCS actually had fairly fully developed site plan that did include a combination CSU and CRT on site. along with some offices. So the site is adequate in terms of size to build what they're proposing.
Chair Omen?
So with Carmel's answer to the question, what I've told the citizens of Willits when they ask why hasn't anybody from Measure B officially gone to the Willits City Council, I think we now are to the point of, with bringing on Knockton Lewis and having this conversation of these discussions, I think that out of politeness, it would be a good time for us to work with the chair and find out when would be a good time for Measure B and a representative to present to the Willits City Council on the possibility that we are looking at Old Howard Hospital, and so we can either confirm or deny the rumors that they've talked about.
Further comment? Public comment?
Thank you.
And please remember to state your name.
I'm Jane Camp from Willits, and excuse me from reading from some prepared remarks, but Howard, the old Howard Hospital got my attention here. I'm discouraged by the fact that we don't appear to have at least one of the three possible facilities open under Measure B, and I understand that Fort Bragg are willing and able to have the PUF unit in their hospital, and I would applaud going forward with that if you can. While I appreciate that steps have been taken to begin a trailing facility, with the mental health facility in St. Helena closing down, I would like us to see us plan and move ahead now to go ahead with all three facilities, one in Ukiah, one in Willits, and one in Fort Bragg. Yes, you are aware that we have the old Howard Memorial Hospital available. If not to purchase, then please consider a lease option. It would be perfect, I think, for the MHRC facility. And I was going to say, I understand that architects have been hired, and I hope that looking at the old Howard is in their remit, and I understand that it is. Thank you. With Governor Newsom recently signing a $1 billion bill rematching grants, and with what I know to be at least $600,000 coming in a month from our Measure B funds, we should be perfectly situated for these matching grants. And on that point, I understand that an administrator has been hired and would like to know to whom is she responsible, hopefully to the Measure B situation and not necessarily to the county. And the other issue I wanted to address was the issue of the many homeless, often unstable people that we find in Willits. And they're often sent to either the ER or to the police station, neither of which, of course, are appropriate. But being homeless often means being undernourished, and that can lead to infections. And I understand that you have a program currently in progress in Ukiah, street medicine, and I'm hoping that we can work with you to try and get that going in Willits as well. And please also bear in mind that our county has many good volunteers available, so please don't let your good endeavors get bogged down by bureaucracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything? Yes.
It occurs to me that there's many spots at the old Howard Hospital in Willits that could be utilized now for a CSU unit. And not only that, there's a kitchen there and laundry, I mean, assume. I know that a CSU unit, the staffing is costly, but we're going to have to do it anyhow. So I'm suggesting that that may not be the final destination for that CSU unit, or we may not even have one in Willits, I don't know. But at least until something else can happen, this could happen in 6 months or less. And I would seriously hope that you would act on this quickly.
I don't know if you've had a presentation of the joint efforts between Adventist and RCS for their crisis respite, the numbers, the costs, the staffing costs, how many hospital days have been saved by moving people from the ER who are able to be stabilized in a respite home-like atmosphere, but I think that would be worth, at least if not in person, some kind of presentation to know what those numbers and costs are, and that, don't know what the right word is. I don't want to say experiment, but whatever that is that they're doing right now. I can tell you personally, having had a lot of people that we serve in that respite, that it has been welcomed by the clients. They feel at home there. Overall, I think it's important to find out about that and see how that weighs in as we look at our response as a county using these dollars.
Thank you. Any other further comment?
I have more of a question.
Please state your name one more time.
I have more of a question or two rather than a comment regarding the scope of contract with Noct and Lewis. Is my understanding correct that they will look at costs to construct each of the three types of facilities: crisis stabilization, crisis residential, and the PUF units. Each of those, whether it's refurbished, the cost to refurbish, the cost to build it from the ground up, will they also include operational costs in each venue? Is there a timeline that that the Measure B committee is expecting to receive that report from them? And how will that timeline mesh with the CHFFA Grant timeline?
Thank you. Janine, do you have a comment? I do know that the cost to construct and operation costs are under the architect to look for feasibilities, et cetera. Their timeline, that I'm not up on, and I apologize.
Well,
Yes,
wasn't there
Chair.
a building plan that we were presented at one time of what the plant itself on Orchard would look like? A lot of the architectural work for Orchard, I think, has been completed, and Noct Lewis is not, their main purpose is not towards the Orchard Street property. It's more towards the other properties we've been talking about. So maybe you could get with with Dr. Miller later and get the plant, what it would look like on Orchard, because I know that was presented to us last year, wasn't it? Am I mistaken?
There was a plan presented to us by Redwood Quality Management Company or RCS. I'm not sure which of the two presented it, but yes, one of them did present it. I cannot guarantee that what Noct and Lewis will propose to meet our timeline will match that architectural design.
Anything further? Okay, moving on. Agenda item 3I, discussion and possible action from the Regional Behavioral Health Training Center Ad Hoc Committee regarding update of outline plan describing relevant details of allocated funds to begin improvements to the Regional Health Training Center before expenditure. And I'm going to just jump in here really quick, and this is my personal thought, and you can all disagree with me. But I think we should have a grand opening with Measure B committee members there and invite everyone to see it. That's my personal opinion, and then I'm going to move it on. Janine.
All right, and I think Tom has a couple things he would like to add. So I just wanted to give a quick update. At the last Board of Supervisors meeting, there was direction from the Board of Supervisors that they do want a specific comprehensive plan from the ad hoc committee and then approval by this committee before we bring forward any request for any additional dollars to do anything at the training center. They are asking that that plan really detail out the purpose of the, purpose changes to the building, analysis of overall goals of why we would want those changes, the purpose for the changes, so not just the proposed changes, but why are we making those changes, number of people that would benefit from any of the changes that we're making, in addition to the staffing requirements and the cost that would go along with the additional staffing requirements to maintain the building as we make these, if we make these additional changes. So ACE did agree that we would bring a plan to the Board of Supervisors with this detailed information. So the ad hoc committee will be working to make sure we get detailed plans that not only have a cost estimate of what it's going to cost, but also answer all these questions so that we have it ready when we bring it to the Board of Supervisors.
Well, I'm certainly looking, as a member of the ad hoc, I'm certainly looking to the project manager for a great part of this plan, because there's a couple of different plans that would come to mind. Are they talking about the building plan itself? And that building plan has already been somewhat conducted by the county building and grounds. They have the plan of what the estimates are going to be to do it, but also the training plan. And the training plan, it's not rocket science to talk about training plan of moving forward with a training program. And I hope our Board of Supervisors is not micromanaging the fact of needing training in this county and delaying the operation of a training center by several months for the purpose of seeing that the training center is going to be a training center. And I'm emotional about this because I've stood in front of this board and the Board of Supervisors basically stating training is vitally important. Training was the reason that Measure A, G, and AH and Measure B got on the ballot for the voters, because training is imperative. And so if the Board of Supervisors wants us to be behind the 8 ball for another 90 days while a plan is committed, so we still don't have the carpet, even though the RFP has been approved. We still don't have the safety gun lock, even though the money was allocated. We still don't have the wrestling mats for the physical defense which was ordered in the first part of December. And so I'm stymied why the Board of Supervisors, knowing that we meet once a month, would say, well, go back to the Measure B committee and see what their plan's going to be on a training building. A plan for a training building is training. There's nothing complicated about it. I can understand their concern about the cost of having someone staff it or what the cost of electricity is and so forth, but there's so many other things that we could be doing that we should be doing that should have already been done before we say, well, let's do a plan for this meeting or for this training center and wait another 60 days. So I'm certainly willing to work on the plan. However, I'm not a paid staff member of this county anymore. We have a project manager. I'm willing to work with the project manager, with the other ad hoc committee member on this and have it on the February agenda. However, I'm looking to the project manager to say, do you have, and I'm just going to throw a number out here, 20 hours between now and the end of February when we meet next to work exclusively on the training plan or whatever the Board of Supervisors wants. We have a board member here, maybe he could explain it, what the Board of Supervisors is actually looking for a training plan for a training building.
I can definitely make the time to sit with the ad hoc committee if that's requested by the committee.
No, ma'am, that's not the request. To sit with us is going to be an hour. To prepare a plan is going to be research of many things and whatever the Board of Supervisors wants. I don't know what the Board of Supervisors wants. Hopefully Supervisor Haschak can get up and tell us what the Board of Supervisors want. But a training building is a training building. And so maybe you can enlighten us, Supervisor, of what the Board of Supervisors wants before we can move forward on a training building.
Supervisor Haschak.
Yes, thank you. I think that there's two issues here. One was the $50,000, which got approved for those renovations that needed to be done for the facility to make it into a training facility. And then the other proposal, and so we approved that, and hopefully that's going forward with the ripping out the pews and putting in the carpet and all that. The other issue was the $200,000 proposal that the the Measure B committee approved at the Willits meeting for a commercial kitchen, and so there was just questions about that, about we wanted this work plan to go along with those kind of improvements to it. So the first part of getting it ready as a training facility, you know, with the 50,000, that was approved. The other part, we would like to see, you know, the work plan for it.
Well, with all due respect, sir, I've been shut down because I made sure that the pews were removed. I made sure the carpet was taken out. I made sure all the holes were plugged. We did the patching of the paint. We removed over 20 yards of brush from the training center through no cost to the county, okay? The carpet RFP has been approved, but it hasn't been done yet. I've been told that the wrestling mats have been ordered. They're not here yet. I've been told the gun locker, which is going to be mandatory for a training center, so no loaded guns go into a training center, has to go in front of the Board of Supervisors. So honestly, I think that there's somewhat of a stymied reaction on spending this $50,000. And that's all I wanted to do, because it was going to take $50,000 to get the training center up and running. But through the wonderful world of bureaucracy, we're not moving forward. And so I'm glad that you're telling us that's where we need to go, because now I can look forward to working with the training manager, the project manager, of moving forward, because we don't even have internet out there yet. We certainly, there's some things that we need that we're not getting. So if what you said represents all 5 members of the Board of Supervisors, that the $50,000 can be used to get it up and running, then I'm looking forward to working with the CEO's office, and by the end of February, hopefully, having the training center actually being a training center.
And I will go back to what I said before, is that we approved the $50,000 to get the place up and running, and it was the $200,000 extra, which we were asking for a work plan.
I understand it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've got that all straightened around. Miss Angelo?
Oh, yeah, I think that, well, I guess I really don't have any more to say, except that I believe that Isabel has been working on the initial 50,000. So I think that between the training mats, the chairs, the tables, there was very little money spent on paint. You did pull the inmates in, and the inmates did the work. So, but I believe the initial 50,000, Isabel has the figures. So I don't think there's a problem there. And I agree with Supervisor Haschak that the board had no issue. You had a carte blanche on the 50,000, and I believe what they want is $50,001 when you get to that point, that they wanted an actual plan on the 200,000, what the training center would look like. It didn't have anything to do with training, but what it would look like, so that they knew that the Measure B committee agreed with 200,000, that that's where they would stay. And that's all I know. So, but Isabel, I don't know if you have any figures on the initial 50,000, and I do know that she absolutely has been working on getting the mats, the chairs, the tables, and the carpeting and everything else that you had asked for. So yeah, maybe you want to comment.
With the expenses that I have become aware of, we're close to mid $48,000. So we're really, really close to the $50,000, and that's just the cost that I have been made aware of. I'm not sure if there's anything else that's going to be brought forward for me to take a look at for those particular costs of getting the facility ready. Like, I haven't received the information for how much the paint costs. If the paint was a donation, and that's not something that we need to take into consideration, I haven't accounted for that yet. But yes, I have been keeping track of what we need to get done to get the facility up and running as soon as possible. And I have been working with the appropriate county staff members and departments to make sure that that process moves along.
If I can make another comment. I think that, you know, I want to be very fair to our Measure B project manager, who's been here approximately 1 month. That she walks in, she's handed a lot of work right away, trying to orient to the county system and get everything done. So let's be fair to our project manager. I would also like to say that along with this, I believe that Isabel is one person. And when I look at a county of 1,200 people, all the different services we have, let's not just talk about just behavioral health. You know, we have one person doing all this work. And I hesitate to say this, but Isabel needs help, So we are all helping her, but I think she needs dedicated staff. And that's all I would say. And I would say that as a manager, that one person doing all of this, doing the ordering, doing the meetings, doing everything. We're just talking training center right now. We have an architect contract. We're talking about 3 different modalities, 1, 2, 3 buildings, who knows? But at some point, I really think that Isabel needs to come into Measure B and really be very practical as to what her needs are to get our projects done.
Thank you. Any other further committee comments? Yes, Ms. Riley.
My question is less about the physical improvements to the building and more about the training programs. And I don't know if this is for the ad hoc committee or Member Ullman, but I'm curious to know who will be, I assume since we will have a dedicated facility, we will be expanding our training offerings in this area. Who is actually responsible for managing and planning those training events? And then further, I had a further.
Well, I have an answer to the prior. Answer to the prior. P&Ps are running through county council.
I don't know what that
right
means.
now. Policies and
Okay,
procedures
thank you.
for the building
Yes.
are running through county council as we speak, I believe. And those will be in place to be looked at. So we haven't forgotten that part of it. In other words, who's going to manage, who's going to be what the rates are, et cetera, what trainings, et cetera, who has picking order. All of that is being looked at and being done.
My question is not so much about who's leasing the building, but are we actually creating a training program that is going to be implemented at this location, or are we treating this location like another conference room or facility that's elsewhere in the county?
Technically, to my understanding, it is a county building.
Right.
Okay? So you have to live by certain county rules.
I
The
understand.
other comment is in the statute, it specifically says mental health training facility. So there you go. That's
I understand.
that's
Are
a-
we creating a
so
training program?
The P&Ps are supposed to, now there's, for the regional trainings and peace officer, or public safety trainings, you know, most of them have to do somewhat with mental health. You're looking at NAMI, for instance, putting on their family to families and their peer to peers there, which is training for family members and training for peers. That's what, in my mind, and I'm just going to be straight up, that's in my mind and in cahoots with the statute, is what this training center is for. Of course, it is a county building.
So what I'm hearing is that we will use this facility to continue the same trainings that we currently have, but maybe don't have adequate facilities for. That there isn't necessarily a new mental health training program that goes along with this new facility that we built.
To my knowledge, no, it will be trainings that have not had places to have them frequently.
Locally.
And regionally, if we're looking at regional. But I will let Commissioner Ullman speak more to that on the public safety side.
Thank you. It's a great question, because developing a training program for behavioral health is something that could put us in the forefront of all the counties in the state. However, with that being said, the 2 county agencies that provide more training for mental health than any other county agencies would be obviously the Department of Mental Health and the Sheriff's Office. And the Sheriff's Office certainly has a need for working with the other first responders, so fire and police and so forth throughout the county, on mental health training. And I believe that you can count on the Sheriff's Office taking the lead of coordinating that training, and I believe that the Mental Health Department would be able to take the lead of their necessary training in that. Does that answer your question?
Kind of.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate Member Riley's question, and I think that Tom's statement is correct. I would say from a county perspective that, I feel like the county is really taking a back seat on this building, in that this really is a Measure B funded training center for public safety, mental health, whatever. And so, you know, I don't want this question to just go away here. I would really like to see some action that either the training center ad hoc put something together. You know, I know you've talked about policies and procedures. I haven't seen those. It's, you know, it's not important that I see them right now, but I don't think we should miss an opportunity here, really, to look at how this building will be utilized, you know, access to this building, and if there, you know, maybe there should be some fully developed training schedule. Is this going to be regional? Is it just going to be countywide? What are we doing? And this is not my number one priority. We're talking about 3 different treatment modalities we want to look at, but really as a county building and as something that we've already put money into and will put more money into, what are we doing? So is there some way that either the ad hoc can take this on and report back to the committee, or, you know, you as chair prerogative want to form another ad hoc? I mean, something, so we don't lose this, because this is really a good time to ask this question. So thank you.
Look it, they're all in when I sit there and go, Chair Almond, did you have something else to say, or? Sorry. Okay, public comment. Just rush the line.
Josephine Silva. I've thought about this for some time, and it occurs to me that many professionals have professional meetings, and particular doctors and healthcare workers, and this would be a wonderful site for them to get up on mental health. In addition to that, we have educators at all levels who need to know a lot about mental health. And I think that this would be a perfect opportunity to provide programs for them so that they know something about things that are maybe not in crisis yet, but they are close to it. And the other aspect of this kind of training center is that it can offer a situation where others from out of county can come and give us information that would be helpful for the mental health community. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was Wind, and then.
Thank you for your work. Suicide prevention, we have so many.
Could you introduce yourself? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Susan Wynn Novotny, also a resident of Ukiah. If there's room for someone on an ad hoc committee to look at a long-term training program at different levels, I volunteer or am happy to help in any way that I can. There's so much we can do to help our first responders, mental health first aid, suicide prevention, many things that we've used multiple buildings, the colleges, et cetera. That's lovely, but to have a focused area where we can coordinate and have a unified plan for workforce investment, and I will do whatever I can to help in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mika Feretta, Vice Chair of the Behavioral Health Board. This comes up all the time at the Behavioral Health Board, so I would definitely say it was something that we could probably help with, because we are asked about it all the time, what the training program would look like, and I think Almond's right about it could really be a program that is innovative in our county, and it's always on our agenda and asked about.
Thank you. Any other further comment? Shannon? Did you?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the public's comments, and thank you, CEO Angelo, for your remarks as well. My concern is I don't want to spend $500,000 plus of Measure B money for another conference room. So I really do want to see an enhanced training program. I want this to be what Measure B was about, and what we all, I think what the sheriff, former sheriff envisioned, and what our mental health professionals envision, that this is truly not just another conference room, but that an opportunity to provide better services than we ever have before. So this is not necessarily my area of expertise. I appreciate the members of the public who have volunteered their time. I would like to recommend, in fact, I'll make a motion that we create an ad hoc specifically to work toward developing a training program to augment the training facility that we are currently developing.
I know that Chairman Allman has a statement, but could we state that instead of creating a separate ad hoc, since we already have an ad hoc of Chair Allman and Janine Miller on the training center, that we just add to that so that it's not all on their shoulders?
I'm totally fine with that if that's okay with them. It's
because why
expanding the
have,
scope.
because they're going to want to be on that ad hoc committee also.
Sure, it's expanding the
So
work of
it
their
would be just
previous-
expanding that
Sure.
committee.
I'm fine with that.
If I may,
Is that not possible?
well,
Yeah, it's
that
not.
committee may still have some of its own obligations. I just think you want to be clear as to whether you're using those two as part of a separate ad hoc to address this, or whether the new members would be addressing the old items as well.
And that actually runs into our next item also. So I'm going to defer to county council as to the correct way to do that, because I would just run the two together, but I don't know if that's legal.
As long as you're clear that you're adding them for both purposes, I think it'll be sufficiently discrete in terms of purpose that'll be all right. I think it's better to avoid confusion as to who's doing what.
Okay, perfect. And Chair Allman,
Point
you
of
had
order-
more statement.
Point of order, I don't believe we can have a motion and a second and vote on it for something that's not even on the agenda. There's no.
You're absolutely correct,
Thank you.
except, and then as we go, you're absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you for that. As far as enhanced training, if I can use the phrase enhanced training, I want to tell you, I've told this committee twice now that the California Peace Officer Standards of Training has offered Mendocino County a piece of $100,000 piece of equipment, technically advanced and so forth. We're already possibly going to lose it because we haven't been able to get our training center up and running. And other counties are now getting this equipment. So I implore upon the county, through whichever departments they are, to try to get us this training center up and running in February, so we can acknowledge that it's up and running, and we can have this new equipment, this enhanced equipment delivered, so it's not going to be given to another entity. Thank you.
Any other further comment? Put your pen up, Ross. There we go.
Your glasses fell, just let you know.
Huh?
Your glasses fell.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it sounds to me like what would probably be the best path forward, because I think to really come up with a real in-depth training program would take we call it a cross-functional team, where and 20 hours, I don't think that's going to get you a really comprehensive training program. I think it's going to take more than that. But to keep things going and to get things done as quickly as possible, probably parallel path, the mechanical and the operational processes. So we go forward with the whatever the stuff you're talking about. Make sure you don't miss that grant, but at the same time, a commitment that we have this cross-functional team, and frankly, I think it's going to be really beyond the scope of our committee, because that's a big project, and it's really going to be law enforcement and mental health people who are here volunteering their time generously. To me, that's a big project. That's a big project.
It is, Ross, but think of this, that the Board of Supervisors has now said, before they want to spend the additional $200,000, they need this plan. And we have all these other plans that are so important, whether it's Orchard Street, whether it's Nocton Lewis, we have all these other things. Let me clearly say this. Nobody in this room has prioritized this training center more than I have. And it's frustrating to me that really and truly it was the first building we bought and we're trying to move forward, but in some ways it's been put on the back burner for other things. And so, which came first, the chicken or the egg? We need training, we need this equipment, the Board of Supervisors needs their plan, but we need to get these other projects going here and so forth. So, I appreciate the Board of Supervisors' request, but it's certainly going to delay the project.
So, moving on, Shannon, do you have another comment? And then we're gonna move on.
I guess I just want to clarify that I wasn't proposing that we stop all work until we have a training plan. I agree with Member Liberty that this can be done in parallel, and I think this is different than what the Board of Supervisors is requesting. They're just, so anyway, I just want to be clear that I'm not recommending that we stop progress. I want to keep moving forward, but I also want a training program. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Agenda item 3J, discussion and possible action of potential additional appointment of ad hoc members to existing ad hoc committees. Janine.
So, yes, I had a couple requests and interested parties who are interested in joining the Training Center Ad Hoc Committee. One of them, the Behavioral Health Advisory Board, has asked that we make sure their representative is on that because they're very interested in not only what's happening training there, also the training center itself. So that would be Mika if she's appointed in February. And also Member Myrtle is interested in being on the training center ad hoc committee.
Any discussion?
I would just ask County Council, having 4 members of this committee on an ad hoc, is that perfectly okay?
Yes, you're under quorum.
Thank you.
Any public comment?
John Wetzler, Little River. I'm listening and learning, and I'm concerned that the facility would be for training of mental health workers, for first responders, for the fire department, for the sheriff's department. And I can imagine that in training, you have somebody who trains you, and then you have a program that he trains from. And I know that those programs exist. I don't see that anybody, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. Those programs must exist. You would agree with that, through the chair. So I see we just get the building up and running, have it heated. You said plumbing, I think. You mentioned there was some plumbing to be done. There's wiring to be done. Get the building so it is serviceable, bathrooms, all of that. I think that's, you don't need a bunch of ad hocs for that. You just have somebody take over the project, get that working, and then the teachers come, they bring their programs, and we don't need to reinvent that. I mean, that's the way I see it. I don't know if it's any different than that, but I'm willing to hear anything other than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further public comment? Did you want to put a motion on the floor?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we add Member Myrtle and the Behavioral Health Advisory Board representative when they're appointed to the Training Center Ad Hoc Committee.
Alderman second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? And they're not here really, so they don't get a choice. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Good deal. Oh, I still have 21 minutes. Discussion and possible action regarding development of Measure B budget. Member Riley.
What happened to 3K?
Oh, you know what? I ignored it. I didn't want to deal with it. Item 3K, discussion and possible action regarding report from the Kemper Report Ad Hoc Committee. Janine.
So we don't have an update at this time. As you know, we did lose one of our members, Jan McGordy, as she retired from the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. So if there is another member who might be interested in joining me and Donna on this lovely adventure, Ross, you're hiding, please let us know. But Donna and I will be scheduling a meeting to continue our work on this.
That's why I ignored it. Agenda item 3L, discussion and possible action regarding development of Measure B budget. Member Riley.
I think we really addressed this last month. I'm not totally sure why it showed up on the agenda again, but I think maybe our project manager has an update about the budget schedule. I'm looking at Isabel. Yeah?
Yes, it was
Okay.
just an update that the Board of Supervisors had approved their master calendar, and that included the dates moving forward of when that planning process is going to start. I'll be touching bases with Member Weir to go over that process and make sure that we get the information for the Measure B budget of whatever funds need to be approved for this coming year.
Anything else? Any public comment or committee comment? Yes, ma'am.
Jane Camp again from Willits. I'd just like to say, in the development of the budget, don't forget Gavin Newsom's billion-dollar project, and I'm sure we can do matching funds in a really great and useful way. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Moving on to agenda item number 3M, discussion and possible action, including approval of expenditure of up to $346.65 of Measure B funds, and I'm not going to read the codes. Isabel.
Mentioned, being brand new, not even a month, there has been, the executive office has identified the need for the software. It's an Adobe government software that will allow me to be able to post the items on the agenda and prepare the agendas, and also post the agendas on our website to make sure that public gets it in time, the committee gets it in time. Right now, I do not have this software, so I had to utilize the assistance of Cass, actually, in getting some of these items posted on the website and ready for you, the public members, to be able to see and today I am requesting for Measure B to approve the funds of this software so that I can be able to continue to do the agendas, the minutes of the agendas, and post the agendas in the respective website.
Madam Chair, this is a no-brainer. After public comment, I'll make a motion. Thank you.
Okay, you make the motion to
Well, after
accept.
public comment.
Oh, after public comment, yes, because we need committee comment. None? Public comment.
Hi, Emmy Good again. I just want to tell you about my experience of dealing with the Measure B website, because I became interested in Measure B maybe last October when I first read about it in the Willits Weekly, and I wanted more information about Measure B, and I knew they had a website, and so I've been trying to not only follow things that have appeared, we'll say, on YouTube in terms of some of the meetings and things like that, but I wanted to know what the schedule was for the year. And so I went on the website a few weeks ago, and there was nothing posted for this year. And so there was, and I thought, well, when are these meetings? You know, I need to know what the meetings are if I'm going to keep people informed and ask them to come to these meetings. And so I called the phone number on there for Measure B, and I got somebody at the county office. I'm sorry, I don't know who it was I spoke to, but I asked them when the next meeting was for Measure B and where it was going to be and when it was going to be. And she's like, well, yeah, I'm not sure. And I said, well, there's nothing on the website right now. And she said, well, they haven't published their schedule for the year yet. And I said, yes, but you must know where the meeting is in January. So is there anybody there that can just put up when that meeting is going to be and where it's going to be and when it's going to be? And I thought that she had reassured me that she did, but she gave me the information, and I admit, I got it wrong. I actually didn't realize that you always meet on Wednesdays, and somehow or other I got the date as being tomorrow, and I sent out lots of information to a lot of people, and a lot of people who were really committed to coming to the meeting tomorrow. And I have to go home now today because I happened to talk to Tom Allman today and found out the meeting was today, and I already had something else scheduled, but I said, hey, this is more important, so I'm here. But on the other hand, it was just incredibly frustrating just to get information about when and where the meeting was going to be. And I'm not sure even in your agenda where my comments would fit in, but my question that I really had wanted to address today was that I have had a really hard time finding out what are the mental health services that are available in this county. Who are the providers? Who are the organizations? Who are the doctors or who are the counselors or people like that? whether there was any directory anywhere or any place on the Measure B website that would tell me who are these people, because I talked to people at our local food bank in Willits, I talked to people at our Daily Bread, and they said, you know, I've got people that come in there and we've got real problems, and I don't even have any access to who do I contact unless it's the hospital or the jail. You know, those are our choices. You know, there isn't a choice between that. So as Carmel Angelo will tell you, she had a call-in radio program a couple of weeks ago, and I called in, and I had said, you know, that I had hoped, because I know that there are these millions of dollars, and I understand you need to have all the physical facilities, but I really am anxious to get help to people. And I said, can't you take, you know, some of that money, we'll say $500,000 up to $1 million, and put it into supporting existing services or providers, or having grants that people can apply for? And whether it's churches, I don't care, as long as they're a nonprofit. If you had some kind of a grant program and you said, okay, take a survey, find out what can we do with the services that we have that are existing, that we can do, that may not cost money at all, or that may cost a certain amount of money, and we could really improve our services, or we could improve our situation by these grants. So that was what I wanted to bring up.
Thank you. Thank you. And today, I will ask Commissioner Miller if she can tell you the best place to go on the website to find resources for the county website, because I'll be honest, I have problems myself.
I couldn't even go back.
Do you have an answer for
us? YouTube
us?
from the last meeting that I thought, well, I'll go back and look at the last meeting that we had. I couldn't get to that. I couldn't find that.
Okay, so we're gonna ask
And I know
Miss.
that's why we bought this fancy
Right, we're
equipment.
gonna ask Miss Miller right now to.
So yes, the county has a behavioral health and recovery services website that has links to mental health, and that will actually direct you to a provider directory, which will actually detail all the providers that are accepting specialty mental health services. So I need to make sure we're clear that our website directs you to specialty mental health providers. So if you have a serious mental illness and you meet that criteria, that would be the website you would go to access providers within the community. If you have a mild to moderate mental health condition or might be unsure, you can access through Beacon or Partnership Health Plan.
Okay, and I'm gonna be the devil's advocate. Do you have anything for family members to just pop on, and what resources?
There is a bunch of resources on that website.
Okay, same thing, behavioral health.
It's if you go under, I don't have it right off the top of my head, but Mendocino County Behavioral Health and Recovery Services.
Okay, thank you. Any other further?
Sherry Ebyam, I just had a question about, I heard that the project director posts and prepares the agendas and minutes, and we've only had a project director for about 1 month. So who did that before? And with all the endless amount of work that that position entails, why this type of work is falling on her desk?
I'll answer the first question, and probably both questions should be answered by the CEO. But the first answer to your first question, who did it before, was the executive office. I don't know if donate is the right word. Absorbed, maybe, is the correct word. The cost for all of this before her, before Isabel. Now, the second question, I am not even going to touch.
Chair Muschetti, I think that's an excellent question, and you're right, there's a lot of work. I think I said that 2 items ago. So, you know, I don't know at some point if Isabel can assess her workload and everything that needs done and possibly bring an agenda item to this board. So that's what I would say. I mean, I think actually there should be at least 2 positions. Ultimately, once we really get up and running with a lot of these projects, at least 2 would be to cover it. So again, I think that it's up to Isabel to really assess her workload and what needs to be done and maybe bring an item to the board. But I support your question and understand it. Thank you.
Any other further comments, public or committee? Beautiful. Moving on to committee Oh, I'm sorry. I really am losing it.
I'd like to make a motion for the recommended action of buying of software.
And I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Are you going to impeach me yet? No. Okay, item number 4A. Committee member reports regarding items of general interest. Commissioner Miller.
Okay, so I wanted to bring forward, I brought 2 articles on Adventist Health. So there's 2 different articles just because they have a little bit of different information, so I will pass those around. This is regarding them closing their 21-bed inpatient facility in addition to their senior behavioral health portion. And it does impact about 105 of their staff, is I believe what they quoted in there. The close date, if I remember, was July 17th. This is a facility we use in Mendocino County. One of the drawbacks for us with this facility is it's one of the facilities in the state of California that accepts Medi-Cal for the ages of 22 to 64. So while they do refer that patients can be served in their Vallejo facility, which has 61 beds, that will impact us because they cannot accept Medi-Cal for the 22 to 64-year-old because they are more than 16 beds or they're not attached to an acute hospital. So this closing does sort of have a big impact, but I wanted to make sure you guys had that information, and I will put additional copies that I have on the back table for everyone.
Thank you. Ms. Angelo?
Thank you, Chair Muschetti. Just a couple comments. I am sitting on a work group at the state level with our statewide association that is dealing with MHSA. And what we're attempting to do is to develop a policy statement to give to the governor's office. There is a movement at the state to make some changes to MHSA funding and what that money could be utilized for. And as we sit here and, honestly, this committee, we approve every dollar, so we spend time on $346, where it would be nice if Isabel could just go ahead and move forward with something like that. We're spending time on a lot of issues, but there is a key issue that could negatively impact Mendocino County, and that's if there are significant changes to the use of MHSA dollars. Right now, within the Newsom administration, yes, there's money, but there is a movement to shift MHSA dollars for homeless services, criminal justice, youth services, and this is something that we all need to be aware of. And if you are involved in any organization, whether it's NAMI at the state level or any other organization, this is something to be aware of and also to let your representatives know about. So with this work group, what we're attempting to do is we're attempting to protect local government and to protect MHSA dollars. We know that if MHSA dollars are shifted, many times state money is shifted to urban and suburban counties, and so the rural counties lose. So it's really important that everyone that's involved, all the stakeholders in mental health, stay apprised of what's happening with MHSA. I have another committee meeting, I think it's next Friday, where we're working every 2 weeks now. We're looking at flexibility in spending and hoping to make a recommendation that the decisions around MHSA dollars are made at the local level, that there's local control, and that the counties have that flexibility. If MHSA money is shifted to homeless services, there's no guarantee that it's homeless mentally ill. There's no guarantee that it's substance abuse and the mentally ill population. So I think we really run the risk of losing MHSA dollars in this county. And again, I'm working at the state level on this. I'll be in Sacramento again tomorrow talking to my colleagues about this. This is the number one issue, is homelessness and mental health right now. And so I don't know, I don't hear this from the community. All these meetings, whether it's Measure B, whether it's the Behavioral Health Board, I'm not hearing about this, but I'm hearing about it in Sacramento, and I'm really concerned. And so we can sit here and talk about $300 all we want, or talk about what we're doing or what we're not doing and what the timeframes are, but this county runs the risk of really losing money for mental health services. So I'm hoping that everyone can stay apprised of this, and I certainly commit to bringing information back to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Liberty? No? Commissioner? No? Myself, none?
In mid-February, February 18, 19, 20, I'll be attending at the state cost of the training seminar for the Force Option Simulator, the piece of equipment which will go in our training center. Post is paying for it. It'll be in Garden Grove. And I would like, before this meeting ends, I would like just a commitment of if we could get somebody who would agree to go and talk to the Willett City Council on this. Can we, I made a suggestion today, and I don't want to wait another month before we make a decision to go to the Willett City Council.
Does Jed, that's what I was just going to ask, does Jed not go to those meetings every? I know he's not here.
Not here.
Well, I'll reach out to him, because I don't have a problem with that, because I think he goes. I think he does.
And, but not just going, but briefing the city council regarding the Knockton Lewis possibility, not possibility, but reality of looking at Old Howard Hospital and going through it. We should give them factual information that we have as soon as possible.
And when are their meetings, Sheriff?
Wednesdays.
Every Wednesday?
For the most part, every Wednesday evening.
Can we do that without?
Not without board approval.
Agenda.
I do have a little bit of concern about there being formal action on something not agendized, but I'd also just say you also might want to look at whether that might be more appropriate to recommend that the board send someone to make that outreach rather than it coming from an advisory body. It might it might prove a little more diplomatic.
Jed could go as a private citizen. These are public meetings. I don't know.
It doesn't matter to me who goes, as long as we're delivering the factual information to them, because their complaint has been that we haven't brought them information. Well, everything's always been just possibility, but now we're getting to the point where possibility is turning into fact, so now's the appropriate time to give them as much information as we have.
They probably thought that we know more than we really
True. True. Absolutely true. Any communications filed or received? None? Look at that. 3 minutes early.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Watch out. I'm on a roll. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for putting up with me. I'll get better as we go along.